For USCFootball.com, I'm Nicole Shearin here with Shotgun Spratling after the number 16 USC basketball team lost 75-68 to the number 17 Bruins in Pauley Pavilion tonight. So Shotgun, this breaks a 5-game win streak that the Trojans had over the Bruins. What is your initial reaction after this matchup?
I mean, it was another close-fought game. USC battles back in this one. They were down by double digits in the first half. They had opportunities late in the game. You thought maybe there was going to be some more magic that, like there's been in this rivalry the last few times, and it just didn't come together for them at the end. And the biggest thing was turnovers. They had 15 turnovers in this game. UCLA had 1. UCLA was phenomenal. They had 15 assists to 1 turnover. USC had 15 assists to 15 turnovers, and UCLA capitalized on those turnovers too. It wasn't just empty. They had 7 steals. They got some fast break points out of it, so they had 13 fast break points. So they were able to get out in the open court and get some points. And they had a 21-3 advantage on points off a turnover. So that's where the game was won and lost. Was UCLA took care of the ball, USC didn't.
Jaime Jaquez Jr. for UCLA had 27 points tonight. So that's 3 less than his 30-point career he hit against Washington. What is your thought on USC's defensive ability to not stop a player like him?
Jaime Jaquez looked like a completely different player than he did in the first matchup. He was hobbled in the first matchup. He just did not look right. He couldn't move as well as he normally is. He's been bothered by some ankle injuries. He looked like a completely different player in this game, and USC didn't have an answer for him. Whenever he would get switched onto a smaller guy, he would be able to score. He would get into the paint and be able to score over them. With bigger guys, he was using his pump fakes really well. He got Isaiah Mobley off his feet a couple times to pick up some fouls. So he did a tremendous job. He was a difference maker for UCLA. He didn't do anything in the first game. He really struggled, and this game he took over. He had the Drew Peterson game that Drew Peterson had last time. So Drew Peterson had 27 in a career high against UCLA in the first matchup. This time it was Jaime Jaquez. His last opportunity potentially against USC, and he gets that win to break the streak. So I know it meant a lot to him to be able to play like this in a game like this, but for USC. They had no answer for him. No matter who they switched on him, they just couldn't figure out exactly how to slow him down, and that was a big deal for UCLA. He got going. Johnny Juzang didn't really do much. Once again, USC shut him down, but Jules Bernard also had a really nice game for UCLA, had 17 points, and both he and Jaquez shot really well from the floor. Anytime they had an open look, they were knocking down jumpers.
There was a 12-point lead at one point during this game, but this game was never lost. USC never gave up. But what do you have to say about the clutch factor for the Trojans that they could not find in the late part of this game? Boogie Ellis missed a shot. Reese Dixon Waters. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, when you look at it, and I asked Isaiah Mobley, they went on a 12-1 run in the final 5 or 6 minutes to get down to 2 points. They were down by double digits. It looks like it's over, and they made some shots towards the end, and they're down by 2 points, and Cody Riley hits a jumper. Cody Riley, who hadn't done anything all night, he gets a turnaround jumper, and a big bucket for him. But the way things have been going, it just felt like that something was going to happen once again. The last 2 times USC had been Pauley Pavilion, they'd had some dramatic moments as well. Obviously last year, or 2 years ago, against Tajidi knocking down a 3-pointer in the corner to win that one. So I asked Isaiah Mobley, did it feel like that? And he said, they kind of felt like, okay, something else is going to happen. But in the end, USC just couldn't get that last shot to get over the hump. They got it down to 2, but after Riley gets that bucket, they had a couple different opportunities because UCLA couldn't make free throws late, USC had opportunities and couldn't get that big bucket. So they'll have to wear this one and go into next week, go into the Pac-12 tournament, hoping for another shot at the Bruins to try to get back on a winning track against their rivals. But they played so much better than they did on Tuesday against Arizona, so I think that's the positive to take away from this. But still, things to clean up because they know that it's one and done once you get into the tournaments, whether it's the Pac-12 tournament or the March Madness tournament. You lose and you go home.
Pauley Pavilion is known to be an electric environment. It always has been. And how do you feel that this environment affected this loss tonight for the Trojans?
I didn't think that USC was really affected by the crowd necessarily. They shot pretty well on free throws. They missed a couple early, but were pretty consistent in the second half. It was a little disappointing, actually, from the atmosphere. The student section was incredible, but there were just a lot of open seats in the bottom bowl, but you expected it just to be packed house. And I don't know if it was the late game or what exactly it was, but a little bit disappointed that it wasn't a sellout crowd like you expected. And it was very fun to see the back and forth when UCLA goes on a couple of runs. This place got really loud. The student section was going crazy. They were lined up, hours before the game. They had music playing, DJs out there. They did a really nice job of packing in the students. But when USC goes on a 12-1 run late and cuts it down to 2 points, it was like a quiet whisper. Everybody in the stands wondering, oh no, is it going to happen again? Is USC going to have another buzzer beater? But it wasn't in the cards for the Trojans tonight. Couldn't get that last shot to push them over the hump.
So this is the first losing streak that the Trojans are facing with their loss to Arizona and then their loss tonight against the Bruins. How do you think this affects the atmosphere and their intentions going into this one-and-done Pac-12 tournament and the NCAA tournament to follow?
I think I talked with some of the coaches before the game. They felt a lot better coming into this game than they did after the Tuesday loss to Arizona. They felt like they had 2 good practices. Andy Enfield mentioned it after the game. During the week, they've got to hone in. They've got to fix the turnovers. They've got to get someone that will calm the game down. They had one stretch that was really big. UCLA had a 9-0 run in a 4-minute stretch in the middle of the second half where it was a 3-point game, and then it stretches into double digits because USC got one shot over a 4-minute stretch because they turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. So they need someone that's going to calm everything down, get them into that offensive set, and you need Boogie Ellis or Drew Peterson. Someone has to be the person to take control of the game, and they've still been missing that at times this season, and that is one thing that USC is still missing, and they've got to figure out whether they have one special play that'll kind of clear everything out, whether they've got their magic play, whatever it is. They've got to figure out a way to end those stretches where they're just not getting clean looks, they're not getting an opportunity to get a shot off because they're turning the ball over, and that was a huge deal tonight. The wasted opportunities when they could go on runs, when they could capitalize, they weren't able to do because the turnovers continued to get in the way. So that's something they really got to work on going forward. But I feel like they're confident in the way they played tonight. They played hard. They shot really well. That was the thing. They shared the ball much better than they did in the Arizona game. That was one of the things coming in that they were excited about. Andy Enfield said that he liked the way that they moved the ball tonight. Still gets stuck every once in a while, but if they clean up the turnovers, they shot 49% in this game. They shot over 40% from 3, so they're making shots, and they had a lot of tough shots. UCLA's defense was really good tonight, and if they can clean up the turnovers, they can easily beat UCLA. They can be right in a game with Arizona. These are 2 teams that they could potentially face again next week. If they get past their opening game, they're probably going to face UCLA again. If they win that game, they would be potentially in a championship game, likely with Arizona. So, if they want to erase this week 2 straight losses, they're going to drop down in the top 25. With the way the pollsters have rated them, we'll see if they stay in the top 25 after 2 losses. But 2 top 25 losses there. If they want to erase that, they have to clean up the turnovers and just be able to find someone to calm everything down when those sticks happen where these things aren't going right for them on the offensive side. Defense was moving around. They did give up some easy looks, but their rotations were a little bit better this game than they were against Arizona. So some positive things to take away from the way they played. But when you lose to your rival, you can't look at it as any positive in a loss to your rival. So they'll have to clean some things up and get back to the drawing board as they go to Vegas and look to try to get a Pac-12 tournament title for the first time in over a decade. But it's not going to be easy for them, and especially if they don't take care of the ball a little bit better.
So this was the final game of the regular season for the Trojans. They tied for number 2 in the Pac-12, and they're slated at the number 3 spot for the Pac-12 tournament. They take on the winner of Washington and Utah Thursday night at 8:30. But Shotgun, do you have any final thoughts at Pauley Pavilion before those Trojans head to the tournament?
I thought it was interesting. Isaiah Mobley obviously didn't play in the first matchup. He goes for 20 in this game. He was doing everything he could. He missed a late one, though. He was, it was a little bit of everybody. And they had those opportunities, and you wonder, if Max Agbompolo doesn't step out of bounds in the final seconds, or if they have 1 or 2 less turnovers in the first half, how different is this game in those final seconds? If it's a 2-point game versus a 4-point game, and all the pressure is on UCLA to not give up a buzzer beater with the way things have gone in this rivalry. But it wasn't in the cards. USC has to bounce back from this, and hopefully they can have a couple good practices and build some momentum going into the Pac-12 tournament, win a couple games to give them some confidence going into the March Madness NCAA tournament as well.
Well, that's going to do it for the final regular season game from Pauley Pavilion. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Nicole Shearin, and check out uscfootball.com for more.